So here we are on Sunday, race day morning. Slept pretty well the night before. Went to bed probably about 10 o'clock and then alarm was set for 5. The race started at 7 a.m. where the pros and the fast age group would then go off, but I wasn't due to go off until about 10 to 8. Now with Ironman races you kind of self-seed yourself when it comes to swim times. Now I'm a relatively slow swimmer, so I was planning for about an hour and a half swim, so I went into the last swim group. Now, up until now I hadn't really been feeling that nervous like the days beforehand. It was always just, almost didn't seem real. It was like just something for the next, something in the future, but it's coming into race morning, definitely starting to feel the nerves. But I just tried to sort of compartmentalise it a little bit. So I was just trying to focus on the swim initially. Previous days I'd scoped out the swim route, so you swim out to the buoy, then it's a sort of long stretch under 2 bridges and you turn around, come back again, another little loop, and you can obviously come back into the swim exit. Now, like I say, I'm not the most confident and strongest swimmer, but I'm not too bad, but that's probably one of my weaker disciplines. So just sort of focusing on the swim, just trying to think that it was just an open water swim, which I've been doing pretty much every week for the last couple of months. So just trying to think about just completing the swim and then we'll worry about the bike and the run afterwards. So I found that really helped me sort of combat the nerves a little bit. And what's good about the Copenhagen race is adjacent to the swim start and swim exit, there's a little area which they designate for swim warming up. So I went after, checked over the bike, checked over my bike bag in transition, then it was getting the wetsuit on, swim hat, goggles, etc., and then going down to the swim start or swim warm-up area and getting there and entering the water, seeing what the temperature was like. That sort of alleviated a lot of concerns as well, because the water temperature was amazing. I was going to say really warm, but obviously relatively warm for an open water swim, but very, very comfortable. And did a few strokes, tested out my goggles weren't leaking or anything like that, and yeah, that sort of really calmed me down a little bit and I was starting to get a little bit more confident. After that they call you into the sort of the starting pens, so obviously we were the white hats, we were at the ends, and then you can self-seed yourself within that pen as well. Obviously if you're a bit quicker you go at the start and obviously slower at the back. I went about midway, I would say, and walk down. You get the starting grid, it's 6 people starting every 6 seconds, I believe, so not so different to some other sort of mass start triathlons, which can be a little bit of a tumble dryer or washing machine. If you've experienced those before, this is just 6 of you walking down the ramp into the swim start. And I would say within the first 200 meters, I knew that it was going to be a good swim. I was comfortable. I say normally when I go out on a swim in a triathlon, I go out really fast because I'm worried about people coming around you and over the top of you. I get really out of breath, then I have to stop and breaststroke for a bit, regather my sort of breath a little bit and then carry on, but there was none of that on this race. Just smooth sailing, front crawl the whole way, sighted really well. It was a beautiful morning, absolutely perfect conditions for the swim. The water was really flat, like I say, the air temperature, water temperature were high, it was sunny, hardly any clouds. Really couldn't have asked for any better conditions. Out to the first buoy, turn around, start heading to the bridge. What's good about the Copenhagen swim course say there are 2 bridges, so you get a lot of supporters on both sides of each of the bridges, so you go under, you really can appreciate that that support that you do get from the supporters on the bridge. You can see that the first one's marked 600 meters, I think, and the second one, I don't know, about 12 or 1400 meters. And I was just following some legs in front, sighting really well, got round to the turn and to come back again. And once I got under the second bridge, so with about probably 800 meters to go, thought I could really sort of open up a little bit, because like I say, I do worry about getting out of breath a little bit when I open water swim and having to sort of stop front crawl. So I was a little bit probably cautious on my pace until, like I say, until that last 600 to 800 meters, when I sort of just went for it a little bit more. And then coming out of the swim, had a quick glance at my watch and saw 1:27, and I was over the moon with that. So I was originally planning for an hour-and-a-half swim, but in some of my training swims that I'd done sort of full 3.8 kilometers, that was sort of drifting to sort of 1:35, 1:36. So I thought maybe I might go over 1:30. So to get under 1:30 and 1:27, yeah, I was absolutely over the moon with that. Then transition area is literally about 100 meters, if that, away from the swim exit. So grabbing your bag off the rack, found that straight away. Wetsuit off, hat, goggles off, bike shoes, helmet, number, all bits and pieces, some nutrition. I think I went for a quick wee, and there's urinals right there as well, so you don't have to worry about queuing up for toilets. Then it's a run right along the red carpet into the bike transition area. So because we were one of the early ones to register, we got a low number, and we were right at the end of transition, right closer to the mount line, so we didn't have to run with our bike too far. Although it was a longer run in our bike shoes, but it's all on carpet, so that actually worked out quite well. And then out of the bike and into central Copenhagen.
Good luck, mate. 1:27.
So the bike course is 2 laps. You have a bit of a technical section till you get out of Copenhagen. Then it's a long coastal road up the sort of east coast of, I think it's the island of Zealand, I think they call it. And then you head inland a little bit, then back down, and then go up round for another lap before you come back into transition 2, like I say, which is in a different area to T1 in the centre of Copenhagen. Started out really comfortable, quite a few people around me, but no problems at all. Technical bits weren't too much of an issue at all. The marshals were fantastic, everything's signposted really well, so no issues with navigation. I was just breezing along, looked down at my Garmin, and I was on about 18 miles an hour, and that was a lot faster than I anticipated, especially in that early section of the race. I'd originally planned to do about 16 miles an hour average pace for the full bike leg, and that would have brought me in about 7 hours. So I thought 18 miles an hour, I'm going a bit fast, but I was checking my heart rate, and my heart rate was where it should have been, so I wasn't too worried. I thought I'd just keep going and see what happens. Got out to the sort of coastal road, and there was literally no wind, so I was a bit worried on that coastal path that we were going to get a headwind, but we might have had a slight tailwind, but there was, like I say, not much wind at all. And the average speed was still ticking over 18 miles an hour. I think the highest I saw was about 18.4. So I was obviously over the moon at that. We came up to the first aid station. I'd already had 2 bottles of water on my bike that I'd put in the morning. So I just dumped off one of those and grabbed some energy drink and a couple of energy bars. I already had some nutrition that I brought with me, so I wasn't too worried about picking up too much nutrition actually on the bike course initially. Then heading in, maybe about 20 or 30 kilometers in, I was eating some of the flapjacks that I'd previously bought, and as soon as I was taking a bite, I was getting sort of a rumble in my stomach, and I was like, oh no, am I going to have to stop here? That seemed to be like every time I ate something, then I'd definitely get some twinge in my stomach. So that concerned me. Obviously in Copenhagen, in the Ironman races, they're very strict on obviously where you can go to the bathroom. There are toilets at each aid station, which you must use if you need to. I've just gone past the first aid station, so I thought I've got a good sort of 20 or 30 kilometers to wait until the next one. So I laid off on the nutrition a little bit, just drank some energy drink. Luckily, when I got to the second aid station, jumped off the bike. Someone had literally just come out of the portaloo, so I didn't have to queue, which was handy. Without sparing you any details, went to the bathroom, but I was lucky, I literally had some trapped wind. So I was more confident after that, and I wasn't worrying too much. Carried on eating some of the flapjacks and I was fine. So that was a big relief, and I only lost probably at 2 or 3 minutes. But obviously that stop did bring my average speed under 18 miles an hour. Like I say, originally I was planned for 16, so anything around, still like over 17 and a half, 17.67, something like that. So obviously I was way up on what I'd originally planned, so there was absolutely no problems there. The bike route now, you head inland in Copenhagen, well, just outside Copenhagen, and it's sort of rolling hills. I wouldn't describe any of them as particularly troublesome. Like the area I live in England, in the southeast, it's relatively flat. It's known for being relatively flat. We don't have any mountains or anything around where we live, and it's very much like cycling around East Anglia. There are a few lumps and bumps, and they describe it as rolling hills, and I think that is an absolute perfect description. Then you come down, you start heading south again. I forget what, Gelsbacher, I think it might be the name of the, so it's basically a big supporting area. It's one of the hills, one of the bigger hills in the route. But the support there is fantastic. You've got loudspeakers going, you've got people with the kettlebells. You've got people going with cowbells. Everyone's crowded around. Obviously you're slowing down because you are going up a incline. So everyone's crowding in close, and it's a little bit like you see on the Tour de France stages. So that was a massive boost. And then we come round, there's an aid station at the top there. So at this point, I was just grabbing some energy bars, some energy drink. If I'd swap it over, dump my bottle off, grab a new bottle, and then some banana and bits and pieces like that. So I went into it with not a massive nutrition strategy. I know obviously throughout down the race you're eating a lot of sweet foods, so a lot of gel bars, bananas, a lot of sugary drinks. I know from my personal experience, I like to have something savoury. So what I'd taken a bag of salted crisps, crushed them up, put them in my bike bag, along with just like a bread roll, just a simple bread roll. And then what I found was I would rip bits of the bread roll off and eat those with a few handful of crisps. And I'd do that sort of every 20 minutes, half an hour, just to break up that constant sweet, sugary drinks and bars that you're eating. And I found that actually worked really, really well for me. Obviously, people are different, but I'd done that in training. I'd always taken out something savoury in my longer training rides. And yeah, that was a godsend. You're really looking forward to that something savoury, like I say, just to break up all that sweet stuff. So at this point, we're over halfway through. There's a split, obviously, when you come down to start your second lap. You turn right to go back into Copenhagen city centre to the transition 2, or obviously you turn left to carry on and do your second lap. There are a lot of people whizzing past me on their mega expensive tri-bikes, coming past and turning right, but obviously I was turning left onto the second lap. And I was still getting my average speed, was still just ticking over under 18 miles an hour. And at this point I was thinking, okay, I'm pushing it a little bit, but like my heart rate's still relatively low, in the sort of range that I wanted to keep it in. And you know, I was just thinking, well, I'll just keep going along like this. I feel fine. I was starting to get a few aches in my legs, just where I've been clipped in. My left foot particularly was starting to ache a little bit. So towards the end of the second lap, or about halfway around the second lap, I was just unclipping my left leg, just stretching that out as much as I could. But it wasn't any major concern, and I was just basically ticking off the kilometres. And the signpostings are, I think they give you a posting every 10 kilometres. So I work a bit of a hybrid between miles and kilometres, to be fair. So I was converting that to miles, just trying to keep my mind occupied. I do that throughout the longer ride. So in my head, I think, well, that's a quarter of the way there, or then we're a third of the way there, then we're halfway, then we're 2/3, then we're 3/4, etc. So I tick them off in my mind until I start to think about my finish time. So like I say, originally I'd planned 16 miles an hour average speed would bring me in at 7 hours for the bike. Now at this point I knew I was going to smash that time. I was working out it was going to be 6 hours something. So again, I was just going through my head, like, what time am I going to finish? How long is this going to take me? And then before I knew it, I was back into the turn point where you go back into transition 2. And I think it's probably about 10k until you get down to transition. Once you get closer to the city centre, you can actually see people on the run. So I think, oh, I'm close to transition. Good thing about Copenhagen is you come back into transition, someone just takes the bike off you at the mount line, and you run through to where your run bag is, and there's some benches just along, literally right next to where you pick up the bag. Take your cycling gear off, run gear on, and off you go. So I wore a tri-suit throughout the day, so all I had to do was take my helmet off, stick it in the bag, change my shoes, and what I did, I put a new pair of socks in both my bags. So I put obviously a pair of socks on when I put my cycling gear on, and then I changed my socks in the second transition, shoes on, running trainers on, gel, I think it was another toilet stop, and then out onto the run. So the run is 4 10k loops right around the city centre in Copenhagen, and I started off pretty well. I'd always had the strategy right from the word go. I was going to walk run. I thought it was unrealistic. I'm not going to be able to run the full marathon. Hats off to people that do. I think that's absolutely incredible, but I knew from my training that I was never going to be able to do that. So I'd planned to I planned to run for 8 minutes and walk for 2 minutes, and then obviously walk through the aid stations as well to take on that nutrition and hydration. And that started off really well. I was really regimented, running for 8, walking for 2, aid stations, everything's going perfectly. First 10k as well was actually really enjoyable. When I got off the bike, I remember thinking to myself, this isn't that bad. Like, yeah, it's been tough, but I'm not that fatigued. Like, I actually felt, yeah, it's never easy, but I never thought, like, I didn't think it was that bad. And for the first 10k of the run, that feeling continued. And yeah, then after the first 10k, it started to get very difficult. The 8 minutes, 2 minutes, sort of went out the window a little bit. I was certainly walking more than the 2 minutes, and more than just through the aid stations. And any type of nutrition strategy you have at that point kind of goes out the window. I knew that right from the word go. I think you can go in with the best nutrition strategy in the world for the run, but when you're struggling, I think you'll just take on anything. So Ironman, you can have water, Coke, Gatorade was a sponsor for the energy drinks. You have gels, bars, crackers, and it was just a bit of give me whatever. The run, like I say, you go around the city centre, then there's a loop, you go out towards the sort of north part of the city and you do a loop, come back again. And for that first half of the race, the support pretty much right around the course was fantastic, absolutely brilliant. Loads of people, everyone cheering your name, just yeah, brilliant. The atmosphere is incredible. Towards the end of the race, towards the second half, obviously the crowd starts to thin out a little bit, and I think they all sort of congregate around the finish area. And when you obviously go past the finish area 3 or 4 times to collect your wristband for the next lap, that can be a little bit demoralising a little bit. When you come up to the section in the course where you turn right for the finish line, turn left to do your loops, and I remember just thinking, oh, I can't wait to be on that. I can't wait to be on that last loop. So if you've done an Ironman in the past, you know you get given a wristband, coloured wristband for each loop that you do. I remember looking at other people thinking, oh, how many wristbands have they got? Oh, they've got one more than me. They've only got 1 lap to go. They're on their last lap, etc. And yeah, at this point, it's just about survival. Get me to the end, checking my watch, working out how many miles of working out like when I'm going to finish, what sort of pace I'm running at. I'd originally planned to do a 5-hour marathon. Now, I think started off pretty much on pace with my walk-run strategy. That would have got me there or thereabouts. But that was soon, like I say, walking a bit more, that was soon going out the window. Walking a little bit more, looking at my average pace, like some 14-minute miles, some 13-minute miles. And then in my head thinking, well, if I walk now, then when am I going to finish? And yeah, it's all, like they do say, it's a mental game as well. And yeah, I completely agree. I was just getting through it, just absolutely getting through it. The aid stations were starting to run out of nutrition towards the end as well, which is a little bit disappointing. A couple of the aid stations I came across had run out of cups, so they were filling up sort of bottles of Coke that they'd used, cutting the tops off, and people were just chucking sort of all these like communal bottles down them. A guy with a hose squirting water into your mouth. So that was only a couple of aid stations, and they did get cups back. But that was a little bit disappointing to see. And they were packing up some of the aid stations as well. So if you're familiar with an Ironman, you know the aid stations are really long. You have the different gazebos of all the different nutrition products. And as they were running out of things, they were packing it up. So some of the aid stations were only sort of 1 gazebo large towards the end. And that was a little bit demoralising as well. I'm not going to lie. And then, yeah, came to the last lap, and that green wristband that you get given for the last lap. So happy to get that green wristband, because then I know I've got less than 10k to go. So at this point, I knew I wouldn't hit my 5-hour marathon target, but overall I wanted to do it in under 14 hours. So I was trying to work it out in my head. So if I keep this pace up, I'm going to finish at this time. If I run a little bit, I can finish at this time. If I walk too much, I'm going to finish at this time and this pace, etc. And yeah, just battling through and getting to the finish. The last lap, there was quite a considerable amount of walking on my part. And to be honest, there was a lot of people walking towards the end. This was probably getting up towards sort of between 8:30 and 9 o'clock at night. So it's starting to get dark as well. And I'd say there's probably more people walking than there were running, a lot of shuffling and people just digging deep and getting it done. And then, yeah, coming up to the turn point where you go left for your laps and turn right to go to the ends, getting to that part was just amazing, just incredible. So I got to that part and I thought, right, I'm going to run to the end and turn the corner because it's still a few hundred meters from there. And I remember coming around the corner, starting to run, and then thought, no, I don't think I can run to the end. So just stopped for a little bit or walked for a tiny bit more, and then it's like, no, right, come on, pull yourself together, Adam, you're running to the end. So then probably took an absolute turn of speed, probably the quickest I'd run for the last 3 or 4 hours. There was a guy in front of me, went past him, and then you do another little loop, and our supporters are really thick now, you're right on the finish line. Supporters were unbelievable, like just cheering, the noise, you could hear the tannoy, the MC, and onto the carpet, round the last corner, you hear them call out your name, and then the words, "You are an Iron Man," and then crossing the finish line was just... unbelievable. Can't really put words to describe it, if I'm being perfectly honest. It was just a combination of almost a year's work. I think we entered the race in September the year before, and then yeah, constantly training for it. Obviously you focus your training a bit more as you're going through, but yeah, 11 months of training, commitment, putting off different social events and going home early and not drinking on nights out and various sort of sacrifices that you make, and you cross that finish line, they give you a medal around your head, and it's all worth it. It's all worth it, and it's just an incredible experience. So I've done it. I am an Ironman across the finish line with a time of 13 hours, 23 minutes and 48 seconds. So I absolutely smashed my 14-hour target time. And if I'd have managed to stick to that 5-hour marathon, I'd have actually gone under 13 hours, which would have been an absolute pipe dream beforehand. But I was absolutely ecstatic at my time. So pleased. Earned my finisher's t-shirt and my medal, and I say the whole experience was unbelievable. I'm crossing the finish line and saying never again, but that thinking changed slightly, like even the next day, because it's such an unbelievable day. It's hard to describe. That I think I probably would do another one. Certainly not next year. They're so expensive, so time consuming with the training. But in the future, I certainly wouldn't rule it out. Copenhagen Ironman, I definitely recommend for anyone doing their first Ironman. It was brilliant. The Danish people are fantastic. Copenhagen is an absolutely stunning city. Yeah. You can do everything there, it's beautiful. We were helped out, the weather was incredible. The course was fantastic, fast swim, bike and run. So if any sort of seasoned triathletes, then that's definitely a spot for a PB as well, I would imagine. And like I say, the whole race week, right from arriving on the Wednesday to leaving the following Wednesday, just couldn't go any better. I couldn't. Yeah, the whole week just couldn't have gone any better. I had no issues at all with anything. So I think I was incredibly lucky that we didn't have any problems. So the slight caveat to me saying I might do another one is the back of my head is thinking, because everything went so well, will that ever happen again? Will everything go exactly according to plan again? Do I kind of just leave Ironman there and say, I don't think I can improve on that? I think if I'd have done that 5-hour marathon and got a sub 13, I think I probably would have said, right, I'll leave it there. I think that's the best that I can do. But I think there's definitely some time to be found in that run. So I'd say watch this space. So thank you for watching if you watched to the end, and that's probably a longer video. Stay tuned, we have some more videos, hopefully a bit more regularly on the channel coming up.